So I haven't done a club history video in a while, so I thought I'll do one on the Cronulla Sharks. Now, most of the discussion points are actually at the bottom of the board, but let's have a look at the history of the Sharks anyway. There are some interesting things that are brought up, and there are some controversial things that are going to be brought up in this video. Now, they were initially founded back in 1963 as the Cronulla Karingba Club. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And they didn't actually join the New South Wales Rugby League until 1967. So it took a long time for them to enter the league. I think the same year as the Penrith Panthers entered the league as well. Hence their rivalry. They entered at the same time and they are rivals. They didn't actually get any success, really. A couple of runners-up spaces in the 70s until 1988 with their first minor premiership, but we'll get to that. So it took a long while for them to actually get anything silverware related. And they haven't actually been the most successful club. They've not been the worst team out there, but success has actually eluded this club for a long, long time until recent years. Now, let's have a look at their records. I can only get 2 records at the moment. I probably could dig a bit deeper, but I researched this video in about 5 minutes to get all the information on the board. I just found an article and went with it. Their most capped player at the moment is Paul Gallen with 339 games. He is still an active player, hence the asterisk, and hence the Paul Gallen is still an active player bit on the board. He would have played more games had it not been for a certain supplement scandal, which we'll get to in due course. The highest point scorer of all time is Steve Rogers with 1,255 points for the club. That in itself is a record that I think will stand for quite some time. They haven't really had that dominant halfback who's spent their entire career at the club in recent years. They haven't had like a Jonathan Thurston type player or an El Masri or a Cameron Smith who can just metronomically kick goals and score tries and create tries. So that's, I think, the weakness with Cronulla is that goal kicking halfback. Other clubs have had, that goal kicker who can kick 2,000 points. They haven't had that. But it's still a record that's up there, and it's still one of the top records in Australian Rugby League with Steve Rogers. Now we get on to their playing success as a whole team. They've only won the Premiership once back in 2016, so that's 3 years ago. And they beat the Melbourne Storm in a very, very tense, exciting but tense final. And they're a big rival. Melbourne and Cronulla are massive rivals. Regular season, finals football, the actual Premiership final itself, they are rivals and have been rivals for quite some time. It's a heated rivalry. The rivalry also between Paul Gallen and Cameron Smith goes over into State of Origin. Paul Gallen being one of the least successful captains in State of Origin. Cameron Smith possibly being the most successful captain in State of Origin history. Big rivalry there. 2 big personalities on the playing field. 2 big rivals. And it carries over into the rivalry. They've been runners-up 3 times, although one of those seasons was when they were in the Super League to the Brisbane Broncos in 97. But in 73 and 78, they were runners-up in the grand final. So they proved they could get there. They've won the minor premiership twice, 1988 and 1999. So 11 years apart, they've been minor premiers. They haven't been minor premiers since 99. And again, it shows this lack of success they've had on the playing field. They've also had money issues off the playing field at several points. We'll get to their more recent money issues at the end of the video. But between 99 and 2016, they were just a middling team. They were a middling team. Some years they're in finals football, some years they're near the bottom of the table, but they're an average team. They're not very successful, but they're not really, really crap. But they have had a wooden spoon in 2014. And it links into some of the stuff we have discussed with more of their modern history that is a bit more controversial. Now, their biggest rivals, you've got the Sea Eagles, the Panthers who joined the league the same year they did, the Dragons and the Storm. The Dragons, Panthers and Sea Eagles all geographically pretty close rivals anyway. Some heated rivalries when it comes to playing on the pitch. The Melbourne Storm, I think, is their biggest rival for me. In the games that I've seen them play, the heated rivalry, the hatred the players have for each other, it's almost been bred into them. They dislike each other intensely. Big, intense games. And of course, that grand final win, 2016, I think caps off for Cronulla, although Melbourne have been back to the finals 2 more times since then, winning 1, losing 1. It is what it is. Now, let's have a look at some of the scandal in their recent history. Between 2011 and 2016, the supplement saga. Now, I've done a video on Essendon's AFL supplement scandal, which is linked into Cronulla because the sports scientist Stephen Dank was employed by both clubs. there is still stuff coming out about this. We still fully don't know all the facts, but what we do know is players were given unknown substances by Stephen Dank, as a sports scientist, that were in breach of the WADA code. Plain and simple. Basically, it boils down to really poor club management as well, not really doing background checks on people like Stephen Dank. The club and players' reputation suffered. Paul Gallen could have played more games. He could have already had 350 games if he wasn't had a backdated suspension for 6 months. He was facing a 2-year ban, which could have ended his career at the time. Wade Graham, also another player, facing a 2-year ban. Now, they gave evidence to the inquiry, and they got 6-month backdated bans later on. But that has affected their stats. That's affected the reputation of the players. Now, Paul Gallen has been suspended for various things on the field. He's not a very popular player with opposition players and fans, but he's a club legend. He's the leader of this team. And he missed out on 6 months of his career because of this supplement scandal. That technically, even though 2016 it was maybe the end of it all, there's still dribs and drabs and things coming out about what happened back in 2011. Shane Flanagan this is his first time suspended as coach for a 12-month suspension. And yeah, as I say, players received backdated suspensions, including Wade Graham and Paul Gallen, 6-month suspensions. This also contributed to the 2014 wooden spoon because the team were now missing key players. They were trying their best, but were absolutely hammered on the field. They finished dead last in 2014. 2 years later, they win the grand final. There is a trend here with teams having scandal, getting a wooden spoon, and then 2 years later lifting the grand final. All but Parramatta, it seems. What has happened over this off-season is at the beginning of 2019, it has been revealed that there was historical salary cap breach going back to around 2014, 2015, 2016, when all this scandal with the supplement saga was going on. And that led to Shane Flanagan being basically fired as coach for the second time. His second suspension. He's been deregistered by the NRL as a head coach. It's highly unlikely he will come back into the fold ever again. But this 2019 salary cap saga has led to issues to do with the finances. 10 club employees were laid off in November in the pre-season. There are issues with finances, even though the club has had NRL support. And there are calls to move the team out of Sydney. But here's the thing. They are the only NRL team to own their own stadium, and they have done since 1967-68. They've owned what is now Shark Park. They've owned it for over 50 years. They are the only team to do that. All the other NRL teams have a lease agreement on their stadiums. So when people say move the team out of Sydney, they own their own real estate. If anything, they're the least likely team to move. They own their stadium. But the 2019 revelations about the salary cap and financial issues link into the supplement saga, which shows where the mismanagement of the team was. Because the club CEO, gone. Coach, gone. And this damaged the reputation of the club. And the players, the coaching staff, the fans took it badly. And yeah, this is what their modern history is known for. It's not known for, being in the league for 52 years, winning the Premiership, getting these runners-up medals, getting the minor premierships, having these great players play for them. Because I could have listed off a whole host of great players who played for the Sharks, a whole host. They're the club fans, other fans love to hate because of the supplement saga, because of the salary cap breach. They are a club other fans love to hate. But they are the only club to own, in the NRL, their own stadium. I know this is a very brief history. I haven't gone into as much detail as other history videos. I literally took about 5 minutes to get this information off the internet, off a reliable source called Wikipedia, although I had to double check some of the stats with some of the players, such as Paul Gallen's there. I had to check a few stats, whack it on the board, and here we are. Really interesting, especially the supplement saga. I think there's more behind with that we'll never know. We know that it involves more clubs. We know that it involves more sports because of what happened with the AFL in Essendon. And I think that is a stain on Australian sport that is carried on to this day. The salary cap breach, loads of teams have done it. Crikey, the Storm and the Sea Eagles have had their own salary cap breaches in the last decade. This was not a severe breach as some of the other ones, but it was still quite severe because they got a premiership out of it, which will not be stripped, which has led to some, again, further dislike between Melbourne and Cronulla. But there we go. There's a brief brief video on the Cronulla Sharks. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Place your comments below, and I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon.